All right, let's go ahead and start the whole thing again because I was muted. Good morning, everyone. This is Jake Adams, CPA with Tax Savings Team. Today, we're going to be talking about the email marketing. This is part two. We kind of covered email marketing a little bit quickly. Yesterday, we're doing warm and cold emails. We did a little bit quickly. I want to take a moment and dive a little bit deeper into emails and kind of give you some templates and some ideas and some strategies on things to do to learn more about marketing, because I think really email marketing is really, really important, and it is the most cost-effective marketing strategy out of pretty much everything. So it's definitely something that we try to focus on because it's so low cost and because it can have such a high impact. So this is the Better Clients in 30 Days Challenge. So welcome. And we are going to be covering email marketing today. Now, I'm going to be referencing two different books here. They're actually by the same author. If you don't have this book yet, I'm going to go ahead and put a link to it. This is actually a free book. You just have to pay for shipping. So I'm going to give you a link to to buy the free book, and it's like $7 or $8 for shipping in the description or in the comments somewhere here. So the two books I'm going to be referencing here is .com Secrets. This is by Russell Brunson. He's the co-founder or one of the co-founders of ClickFunnels, which is a program that I use almost religiously because it's just such an amazing and really, really good program that really, really works well. So anyway, .com Secrets, we're going to go and reference that. And then the other book to his secret, in his sequence, or his series, Expert Secrets. So both of these books have a lot about marketing and about email marketing. So I'm going to go ahead and, like I said, just kind of go through some of these ideas with you through these books. And we're going to get some ideas as far as how to do email marketing better. All right, so first of all, we're going to be talking about the know, like, and trust sequence. So on yesterday's video, on last video, I talked about the know, like, and trust sequence. I went into it a little bit, but again, I want to go into it a lot more depth and detail and what you should be really including on these videos. All right, so the know, like, and trust, the KLT, I'll reference to KLT. What we want to do is we want to develop your backstory and your character, and if you have any flaws, and then also polarity, right? So I'm going to put these options, or these kind of things up there for us, right? So number one is your backstory. So tell me more about you. Tell me more about what makes you you, right? What are the challenges that you've overcome, or what are the challenges that made you who you are, or have got you to the position where you are right now? Number two, flaws. Do you have any flaws? Right? People connect to people with flaws. If you get busy and you just get like overwhelmed because you're busy, that's okay. You can let people know that hey, I'm just too busy, right? Sometimes I get busy and I shut down. It's like, oh my gosh, too busy, right? So talk about that in your know, like, and trust, right? These flaws that are really good. And then number three is polarity. So polarity, we want to talk about, who is a victim, right? Are you a victim because of something? Are you a victim of overpaying your taxes? Yeah, right? You could be a victim of overpaying your taxes, right? No one told you that there was a way to pay less in taxes, right? You kind of hear, hey, my friend said this, or this person said this. I overheard some ways to pay less in taxes, but the IRS isn't going to reach out to you and say, hey, you overpaid your taxes, or the IRS isn't going to reach out to you and say, hey, you could have done this deduction, or taken this or done this instead. They just don't do that, right? So it's okay to let people know that they're a victim. They're a victim of overpaying their taxes, and that's okay, right? And now you are polarity. Polarity, you can kind of say, hey, I'm going to help you out with that, right? You don't need to be overpaying your taxes anymore. I'm going to be working proactively with you to make sure that you aren't overpaying on your taxes anymore, right? So there's a victim, and of course, with every victim, there's also a villain, right? So who is the villain? The IRS is the villain. This is great if you're doing any tax resolution work, right? Because you can say they're the villain, right? The villain is the IRS or the California Franchise Tax Board, or whoever the state tax authority is, right? Because they're taking their money out of their bank account. They're like, hey, you can't pay for food. You can't, feed your kids this week because the IRS or the Franchise Tax Board took money out of your account, right? They are a villain, and it's really easy to see that. So if you're doing any tax resolution work, or want to kind of put this together for tax resolution, it really makes sense. It almost, like, the story almost writes itself. Okay, so we talked about these three things. I'm going to add a couple more things. The next one I want to talk about is being a leader. Right? So are you a leader? Are you a leader to a group? Are you a leader to a cause? Are you a leader to something? Right? What are you leading? And why would someone follow you? Right? Because if someone is your client, they're basically like they're following you. Right? They're following you and your content and what you're creating to see if they want to give you money and become your client. But also, once they are your client, they're following you because they know, like, and trust you. Right? So you want to start building out that leadership. Why are people going to follow you? Why would someone want to work with you? So you can kind of create that leadership, if you will. Are you an adventurer? Are you a crusader? Are you on some sort of adventure? Have you done a cool adventure? So there's a lady in our group in the tax savings team. Her name is Christy Bender. And Christy does all of these amazing trips and travel, and she's out in the plains of Africa and cruising around Alaska, and she's in Europe and Asia and all those other places, right? And to me, I love to see that, right? I love to see those emails and those posts that she does on Facebook. I love to see that she's adventuring, right? And that's cool. I mean, that's a really cool thing that I know, like, and trust about Christy, right? I know that she likes to travel. I like that she likes to travel, and I like that she shares that stuff with me, because at home, stuck with 3 or 4 kids, it's like, hey, I don't really get to get out much, right? So I almost live vicariously through Christy and her sense of adventure. So you can talk about that. You can talk about your sense of adventure. And then also, with your sense of adventure, are you on some sort of crusade? Are you on some sort of mission? Are you on some sort of crusade to help people? If you're helping people overpay their taxes, if you're focused on tax strategy, yeah. If you're focused on tax resolution, are you on a crusade to help people get caught up on their taxes? Yes, right? So these are things that you can be a crusader for. Crusader, right? Are you on a crusade to help somebody and do something? And then the last one is, and this is one of my favorite, is the reluctant hero. The reluctant, I'm going to spell that wrong. Even though it's right in front of me, I'm going to spell it wrong. All right, so the reluctant hero. What is the reluctant hero? Well, basically, the reluctant hero is saying, hey, I found this out. I had this epiphany, right? I didn't realize that people were struggling with this, right? And now, like, I feel like it is important to me to reach out to people and to make sure that I'm helping people with this. And I'm making sure that it's my crusade or my mission to help people understand this and to improve this in their lives, right? So let me give you a great example of my reluctant hero and how I'm a reluctant hero. So I started my tax practice about 5 or 6 years ago. I was working as an employee, and I said, hey, if you're charging $100 an hour for my services, if you're billing me out $100, I can go out and bill myself out at $100, right? So I had this entrepreneur epiphany, and I said, hey, I gotta go, like, start my own thing, right? So I went out on my own and struggled getting clients, and I didn't realize how difficult marketing was. So I was struggling getting clients, learned a lot about marketing, got those clients, and then just got too busy working inside the business. But then I realized that I could charge my clients a lot more if I focused on tax strategy. And I started to have that value conversation with them about, hey, this is how I'm going to save you money on your taxes. I want to work with you proactively. This is how I'm going to offer more valuable services. So I'm going to ask now for $2,400 or $2,000 or more a year instead of just $300 or $400 for your taxes, right? So you can see how I was actually able to charge about 10 times more than I was before. And I was able to do that through value pricing and having that conversation around value and making the offer around value, not just doing their taxes on a compliance work, right? So that's what I do is I had that epiphany, right? I had that epiphany. And then I saw all these other tax preparers out there, and they were having the exact same struggle. So, I mean, I never set out to like change the world, but now that I'm having these conversations with other tax professionals like yourself, I need to have this conversation. I need to share this information. I need to be able to share, hey, this is how you can use marketing to get more clients. And this is how you can have that value conversation to charge more. And this is how you can increase your profits inside your business, right? It all makes sense. And now, I mean, I feel like that's now my crusade, my mission to help you guys out and to help other tax professionals out, because we really need to know, we really need to have this information, especially as artificial intelligence and and automation comes in. That's going to be stealing a lot of our jobs. It's going to be stealing a lot of the basic 1040 work. So we have to move our compliance services up. We've got to create more value, or we're going to be dinosaurs, if you will, right? We're going to go extinct like the dinosaurs. So that's why I'm the reluctant hero. That's my reluctant hero story. So I hope that makes sense. And, I kind of went through that to show you kind of example of what you can do. And of course, that's not written out. You could write that out, right? Or you could use a program to record your voice and then to transcribe that and then just put that in email. Or you could even do like a video, right? You could do a know, like, and trust series through a video. All right, so why did I give you all of this, and how is this going to help you? Well, essentially, this is there to help you get an idea of a couple quick emails that you can do just to get started introducing yourself to new clients, right? So yesterday we talked about this series of the steps. So once someone subscribes to your email list, you're going to want to start sending them some sort of emails, right? Those emails are the know, like, and trust, or the KLT sequence. So what you want to do is choose any or all of these. It's completely up to you, whichever ones you want to do. You don't have to do all of them, but if you want to do all of them, that gives you 7 days, which is great, right? So if you want to go you can do all of those, right? I just gave you 7 examples. So first example, backstory. I mean, I don't know, everyone's backstory is different, but in my case, I just gave you a backstory, right? So if I was writing out the KLT email sequence, my backstory would be, hey, I was working for a regional firm. I didn't really like it. Struggled with this, and I went out on my own, right? Flaws. My flaws are, coming up to the tax deadline and extension deadline, I start to kind of shut down. I'm like, I got emails flying all over the place. I get overwhelmed, and sometimes I just need to go take a walk. That's okay, right? People relate to that. They're like, yeah, I get overwhelmed when I've got a lot of stuff on my shoulders too. That's okay. We talked about polarity, victim, and villain, right? Focus on those. If you're a leader, right? Show that you're a leader. If you have targeted in on a target market, say how you're a leader to that target market. What things have you done for that target market? So in my case, my target market was real estate agents. So real estate agents in my area, I was a speaker. I was a guest speaker to a lot of different marketing meetings and different offices. So if I was to put an email together to introduce myself as a leader, I'd say, as an expert speaker or an expert guest speaker to, the VREN and the Coldwell Banker and the Keller Williams, and I just list like 20 different places that I've spoken at. People are like, wow, this person is an expert, right? Jake is an expert because he's spoken at all these places. He must be an expert if they keep asking him to come back and they keep referring him, and he's speaking as a guest expert speaker at all these different places, right? That just kind of makes sense. Adventure, if you have those adventures, an adventure doesn't have to be, a trip to Africa, like I mentioned with Christy. Your adventure could be a trip to the park with your kids, or a trip to the zoo, or something like that, right? Something that's interesting, right? Again, have your clients learn more about you, or your potential clients learn more about you, and they're going to relate to you, and they're going to say, hey, this person's cool. I can relate to this person. They're a human being, right? The more humanistic you can make it, the better. Are you a crusader for something? What are you on a mission for? What are you on a crusade for? And then, are you a reluctant hero? Why are you a reluctant hero, and how are you a reluctant hero? Can you share that story? All right. So I think that's it. Yeah. All right. So that's it for that. I hope that makes sense. Let's move on to the SOAP sequence. Now, the SOAP sequence, or the Seinfeld sequence, I mentioned Seinfeld. Anyway, something like that, right? So the SOAP and the Seinfeld sequence, I mentioned this yesterday, but it's basically like, hey, how do you continue on having this conversation with people, potential clients or current clients, through an email sequence, right? So you're just having the conversation, right? So if you were to call up, a family member and say, hey, this is what I did last week, that's essentially what this is, right? So it's kind of getting them engaged and letting them know a story, letting them know more about you, what's happening to you, and what are the things that you're doing. Now, you can do this two ways. You can have this as kind of an evergreen, where it's like, hey, this is something that happened to me, and I'm going to kind of say it as it happened recently, right? So you can have that trickle into new people right as soon as they're getting on your email list, or you can have something that has to do with current events, and it has to go with current events. So you can blast that out to all your current email subscribers, and that's okay, right? So I'm going to put here, there's two. So you can do evergreen, and then evergreen would be like, hey, we took a trip to the zoo with the kids, and this is what we did, right? That's evergreen. Versus current, right? So current, you want to talk about like Trump, right? So President Trump did this. Okay, well, that's current. So you're going to want to blast that out to all your email subscribers on a current basis and not drip it like it's evergreen, right? So evergreen, this would be a drip. And you can continue to let this content drip, drip, and drip, and drip. And then current, you would want to blast this out. Right? So evergreen is drip and current is blast, right? So if you're like, Jake, I have no idea what to write. Like, give me some ideas. So here's the best examples that I can do. If you've ever seen a Disney Pixar movie, really what you want to do is you want to kind of emulate that Disney Pixar movie. And the Disney Pixar movies are always based on, well, maybe not always, but most of them are based on what's called the hero's journey. So if you know anything about filmmaking and film producing, it's one of the things they talk about is these different kind of scripts or different kind of stories. And one of the stories they can do is the hero's journey. So, and then if you're a woman and this is heroine, I'm sorry, I'm just going to put heroes, right? So hero's journey, right? So what do you do during the hero's journey? Well, essentially, think of like if you watch Cars, right? So Cars, the main character, Lightning McQueen, what happened? He was on a rise to the top. He was doing great. Everything was awesome, right? And then what happened, right? He pushed the limits and his tires blew out, and then he had a crash, right? And he was like, okay, I'm gonna make it up. I'm gonna make it up. I'm gonna make it up. And then what happened was he got stuck in this town, right? And it was stuck in there. And he goes, right? And he's like, okay, now, okay, if I fix the road, I can get out of here, right? So I'm fixing the road. What happened? I did it wrong. Boom. Right? And so essentially you're going these ups and downs and ups and downs. So that's what gets people engaged. And that's what gets people interested in the story is you have these, yeah, he's going to make it. Oh, no, crash. Oh, okay, he stumbled on this, right? He hit a wall. Okay, how's he going to overcome that? What's going to happen, right? And that's essentially what happens. And at the end of the movie, he was just about to win, right? He was on this huge, like winning streak and like everything was going great. And then what happened was he looked back and he saw his hero had crashed or something happened. And he wasn't able to finish the race, and he had this epiphany inside of him and said, "No, I found now my true calling. I'm my hero's journey. I've had this change inside myself. I've had this journey inside, this transformation inside." And I said, "Hey, I'm not going to be this. I mean, I can be a winner, but I don't have to be a winner by finishing the race. I'm going to be a winner by doing what's right inside myself, which is helping my friends, right? And being true to myself." And you kind of had this transformation inside. And so, yeah, that's the hero's journey, right? So in that short time, I just told you like, oh my gosh, that's great, right? And you're hopefully engaged through the whole thing. And that's the hero's journey, right? So let's talk a little bit about this conflict, right? Or the turning points in this conflict. So number one, you'd have your opportunity, right? So number one, you have your opportunity, right? Number one. Okay, so number one is your opportunity, right? So how can you're on the way to something. You have the opportunity to do something. Your client has the opportunity to do something, or someone that has an opportunity to do something. What is this opportunity that someone would say, hey, that's really cool, right? Tell me more about that. Number two, right? And then so to explain the situation, right? So explain the situation, right? And this is in email number one. So email number one, what is the opportunity? What is the situation? Engage them, hook them so that they want to continue watching this or continue reading this, right? Think of it like a movie. You're scripting out a movie or you're writing out a movie. All right. So number two, you have the opportunity. You have the situation at the end of email number one. something happens. Something happens. You have this cliffhanger. So someone, oh, I got to read email number 2. I got to see what happens, right? Let me know what's going to happen in email number 2. So email number 2 is the change of plans. There's some sort of change. There's some sort of change. What changed? What happened? I want to know, right? Tell me more, right? And then what is the process? What is the process to this change? What is the process? What's happening, right? So in the Cars movie, like I love that car. I love the movie. It's a great movie, but it's also really good as far as explaining out the story, right? So the opportunity is, hey, I'm going to win the Piston Cup. I'm going to do it. I'm going to win it. I'm going to win it. I'm going to win it. And then something happens. Boom. I can't win it. Okay, I get a chance to win. I still get a chance to win the Piston Cup, but there's a change. The change is I'm stuck in this town, right? And what's the process? Well, the process is I'm learning more about myself. I'm learning more about friendship, and I'm transforming inside myself, right? So that's 3. Point of no return, right? Number 3 is the point of no return. So what's the point of no return? Well, the point of no return, and that's in that movie, will be essentially when he gets discovered in that town, and they take him away, and then he's starting the next race, right? So he's starting the last race. This is the point of no return. Right? He's in this new he's back into his old habits. He's back into his race, but he's changed inside, and he's like, hey, there's no way I can change now. I'm new. You know, I'm my new person, right? The major setback, right? So what was his major setback? Major setback. Right. So his major setback was he was so stuck on winning, right? He was winning, and then he realized that and winning is not everything, right? So that's the major setback that he ran into, right? And then the climax. The climax of the story. What was the epiphany moment? What was the climax of the story? That was right before he was able to finish the race, right? Right before he was just a couple feet away from the finish line. And he looked back and he said, no, like winning the race isn't everything. I can go back and help my friend and make sure that my friend wins the race too, right? And that was the climax. That was the epiphany of the story. That's the final point. So major setback to the final point, and then the climax, and then the aftermath, right? At the end of the movie, the aftermath was he goes back to Radiator Springs, and he does he makes the town better, right? So he goes back and he says, yeah, now I have my racing headquarters here, and making the town better. I'm with my friends. That's the aftermath, right? So basically, that's what we're going to do, right? So the 5 steps. This is the hero's journey, like I said. So how can you do this how can you do this email for yourself? Well, it's not as simple as like, okay, I'm washing the dishes today. You can have like a whole story on that. But think of a way to embellish something that's happened to you, or have a client success story, right? So a client, here's a great example. So I was talking with one of our members, Damar, the other day, and we were trying to figure out her offer, right? How can she offer more valuable services to her clients? And so we're having this conversation. I said, well, think of your ideal client and what are the things that they struggle with. And she says, well, I work with construction companies, and if a construction company is at a certain size, they need bonding, or they need a special type of bonding for construction companies. So I said, okay, if they don't have that bonding, or if they don't have that insurance or whatever that is, then they go to not really a job interview, but if they go to quote a job or bid on a job, they could get turned down for the job. And she said, yeah, that could happen. I said, there you go, right? There's the story. Your hook is you could lose business, or you can't grow your business past a certain point, or there's a glass ceiling to you, right? This glass ceiling is, hey, once you get to this point, you can't do any more jobs unless you have this one thing, right? That one thing is that bonding thing, right? So what's the opportunity? The opportunity is Rick was building out his construction business, and he was at $5 million. He had 20 employees. He was on top of the world. He was growing, and then this happened. Right? That's the end of the email. Then this one thing happened to him, or this thing happened. Rick was going for his biggest job ever. He was going to do paving for an airport, right? But then this happened. We'll tell you more in email number 2, right? And people are like, okay, I'm engaged through email number 1. I want to read email number 2, right? So email number 2, the change in the process, right? So Rick realized that the business he was building was doing really well, but he needed to change a couple things. He needed to have a CFO in-house to understand job process completion or job completion costing and things like that, right? And he needed to have these new bonding requirements or these new insurance requirements, right? That's the change in the process, right? So how did Rick go through these processes, and who did he have to hire? Did he have any stumbling blocks? Maybe he hired, maybe his old accountants had no idea what this stuff was, and he was like, I thought you were going to take care of this and you didn't, right? Or maybe he hired somebody and they didn't know this stuff and they failed him, right? So did he find that right person? Did he find the right manager? Did he find the right accountant or the CFO or CPA to help them get to the next step, right? There you go. That's interesting, right? And just that one change, you make a fun story out of it, and it's interesting, and people get engaged with it, and they want to go, right? Point of no return. The point of no return is, hey, I was just about to bid that job, or I bid that job, and they came back to me and they said, hey, do you have this bonding requirement? And Rick said, I don't, right? And they said, sorry, Rick, I can't hire you because you don't have this. Oh my gosh, really? Like I just lost out on a, I don't know, just $30 million job or something, right? He lost out on this $30 million job because he didn't have this bonding requirement. Oh man, right? All this thing that I thought that I had, I don't have that, right? So point of no return. Oh my gosh, major setback, right? The major setback is he didn't have that, right? So continue on with that. Oh my gosh, how did this hurt, right? And then the climax of the story, right? He was just, he didn't have this bonding requirement. Now we got the bonding requirement. His next job, he bid and he didn't get it, right? So maybe that's another that's a final point or another major setback. And then he bid his next job and then he got it. Yay, right? So that's the climax of it. So the climax of the story, he bid the job, he got it. And, this bonding requirement now let him do bigger and better jobs, right? And the aftermath is now Rick's business has tripled over the past 2 years, something like that, right? So you're like, oh, that's really cool. So you can say, hey, what you're doing is you're getting people interested, you're telling a story, but then you're also running them through that hero's journey and showing how you helped Rick in this situation, right? How you helped Rick take his business to the next level, right? So I hope that makes sense because it's not just a case study or a white paper, right? People are like, yeah, maybe they'll read through a case study and they'll be like, okay, that's cool, right? But emotionally, we connect to people, right? So if you say, hey, Rick ran into this thing, he's like, oh my gosh, what's wrong with Rick, right? Or how could we help Rick? Or, Rick's not doing great, how can we help him? Or how did Rick get helped, right? Things like that. So that's the thing is emotionally, we connect to people emotionally, and we like to read stories, and we get, interested in these stories and we continue on reading the stories. Whereas we don't really do that with white paper. Sometimes we just skim through it and we look for the pertinent information for us. So I hope that makes sense. Cool. All right, so that's what I want to cover there. Let me just double check my notes and see if I had anything else that I wanted to cover. I think that's it. Okay, so basically, let me go through a couple more things here because I kind of went through that and that's pretty cool, but I want to give you another idea on how to do that. So let me get rid of this. And I want to walk you through a couple other ideas when you do this, right? Cool. All right, I'm running a little bit over, but that's okay. All right, so I want to give you some more ideas for stories, right? So I'll give you some more ideas for stories. High drama, right? So kind of we had that same conversation like with Rick, right? What's the opportunity? What's the situation? High drama. The next thing is the wall, right? Oh, he hit a wall. What happened, right? Identify the problem. Identify the problem. What happened? Why wasn't he able to move forward? What kind of happened? Did he have an epiphany or a declaration? Did he have an epiphany? E-P-H. No, E-P-I-P. Epiphany. Did he have an epiphany? What happened? Okay, I realized I needed this bonding requirement. I needed to have this change, right? Your path to find the ultimate solution, right? So what is the solution? Solution, and then there's a path to that solution. Okay, success, right? What is the first step to success? How do we start success? How do we get success? What does success look like, right? What does success look like? Conspiracy. Is there a conspiracy against us? Is there a conspiracy against Rick? there's a conspiracy, the bonding agents of construction companies, right? They conspired against him. Hey, I can't grow my business because I need this thing, right? But there's a conspiracy against us. Conspiracy, right? That maybe that doesn't work as well for Rick. But let's say someone's trying to get out of tax debt, right? There's a conspiracy. Okay, well, the IRS gave me payments of $300 a month, right? Because that's all I could afford. But the interest and the penalties are $294 a month. So I'm only paying down $6, of principal of that debt every single month. There's a conspiracy. It's a conspiracy. The conspiracy is they're just charging me as little as they can so they can keep me in debt and tax debt forever, right? It's a conspiracy. You got to see how that could play out, right? A big lie. It's not your fault, right? Not your fault. Not your fault, right? So, hey, man, it's not your fault that they've got these bonding requirements. It's not your fault that they've rigged this system against you, so it takes forever to pay down your tax debt. Right? It's not your fault. Let's help you out. The enemy or your victim, right? Again, going back to the KLT story, like the victim and the villain, right? So who's the villain or who's the enemy? Over here, enemy. Who's the enemy? Oh, my blue one is. Hold on. I threw my marker. All right, who's the enemy? Rapid growth, case studies, benefits, right? So who's the enemy? Who's the enemy? I don't know if you can see that, right? So who's the enemy? How's the enemy going to hurt them or hinder them from getting what they want? And then growth. And then you can use this for case studies, and you can use this for benefits, like, hey, this is how I'm helping my clients. Case studies, how I'm helping my clients. Case studies, how Rick took his business, how he tripled his business in 2 years, something like that, right? So these are all about case studies. Case studies, things like that, right? All right, cool. All right. I've given like tons in here, right? All right, so I hope that helps you guys out. I hope that makes sense for you, building out these email marketing. Why are you going to do email marketing? Well, like I said, it's the most cost effective because it's usually very low cost to send these guys out. And the more people you have on your email list, the better that you will do. So thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this was helpful for you. I hope that I kept it engaging the whole way through. And if you have any questions or comments on this, please let me know. I'm more than happy to help you out. And I'll see you on the next video.